Good evening and welcome to tonight's program, She Leads, in recognition of Women's History Month. This evening is sponsored by the Greater New York chapter of the Lynx, the New York Urban League, and the New York NYU McSilver Institute. My name is Arva Rice, and I'm a proud member of the Greater New York chapter of the Lynx Incorporated and president of the New York Urban League. We are so pleased to sponsor this event this evening. As New York City and the nation emerges from COVID, we are well aware of the systems that need to be rectified in order for us to move forward. In order for us to have a true revitalization of New York City, we need to look at problems that have been revealed in new and unique ways. And we are so pleased that the people of New York have decided to answer that call by electing the first majority of women in New York City Council. And we're also so pleased that we have our first female city council speaker. We will speak one-on-one with the Honorable Adrienne Adams, Speaker of the New York City Council and the first Black woman to be in this role. We also have a panel discussion with some of the newly elected and trailblazing city council members who are already making an impact. Our panelists include Councilmember Selena Brooks Powers, who is the majority whip of the council and the chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Councilmember Rita Joseph, who is the chair of the council's Education Committee. Councilmember Natasha Williams, chair of the Committee on Civil and Human Rights. We will hear from these legislators and policymakers about their professional journeys and their decisions to run for office. We will also discuss their legislative priorities and how they manage life-work balance, because we could all use some direction on that. We will also provide an opportunity for questions from our audience. And so we ask you to drop those into the chat as you think of questions along the way. We are so pleased to have an amazing facilitator for our conversation this evening, Cheryl Wills. Cheryl is a woman that we all know and love because she comes into our living rooms and talks about issues and talks to people that we want to have the conversation with. So we want to thank Cheryl for the wonderful job that she does. She is the Emmy Award-Winning news anchor at New York One, and she's host of In Focus and the author of 5 books. How she does it, we don't know. She is also a member of the Metro New York chapter of the Lynx. Lynx Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We know how busy you are. We want to thank you for all that you do for New Yorkers. And now I will turn things over to you so that we can begin this amazing conversation with Honorable Adrienne Adams, the Speaker of the New York City Council. Thank you again, Lynx Cheryl.
Oh, thank you, Lynk Arva. What a beautiful introduction. I'm so grateful, and good evening to everyone. It's an honor to be with all of you, and happy Women's History Month. I'm coming to you live from my newsroom here in Chelsea, and I want to thank my sisters in the Lynx Incorporated for the opportunity to moderate this She Leads event. History is being made right here in New York City. You'll learn about that in a few moments. But as so many of you know, Queens Council member Adrienne Adams made history in January as the first African-American speaker. The Democrat, a little background for you, the Democrat was elected to the City Council in November of 2017. She's also the first woman, you should know, to represent District 28, which encompasses the neighborhoods of Jamaica, Richmond Hill, Rochdale Village, and South Ozone Park. Queens is in the house, y'all. And it's worth noting that this city council right now has its first ever female majority. And that's really a hard-fought battle, something all voters should be very proud of. So I'm pleased to welcome Speaker Adrienne Adams. Madam Speaker, so great to see you again.
Great to see you, Cheryl. Always great to see you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I thank our hosts for this wonderful evening celebrating women. Happy I want to say Black History Month.
Well, it's all year round for us.
It's all year round. So happy Women's History Month as well.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's no secret you are now the second most powerful individual in City Hall after the mayor. And there are many pressing issues facing the city right now. But first, let's talk about you and what this moment in, shall I say, herstory means for you, Madam Speaker.
Oh my goodness, Cheryl. It means that little girls that look like you and me have a role model that they can actually walk up to and hug, can touch, can email, can ask to come to their schools and know that I will, can ask to get on a Zoom and know that I will, to know that I'm going to represent them in a way that I would have wanted to be represented at that age. We're here. You know, we are now in a space where I am so proud and honored to lead 31 women and a majority of amazing, brilliant women in the New York City Council, along with the males in the New York City Council as well. But this definitely is herstory. It's our moment. We have brought in, I mean, thinkers, brilliant thinkers that you're going to talk to a little bit later on, women that have actually done the job before I could ever appoint them to lead the committees that I appointed them to lead. They are actually experts in their fields. Imagine that. Who would have ever thought that we could ever do such a thing? Common sense. So we have a lot of brilliance, a lot of women energy. So I just say, make way, the women have arrived.
Yes, we have arrived, and you are leading the way in the City Council. So for those who may not know exactly what it is a speaker does, share for us the uniqueness of your position. You are, of course, selected by your peers. So share more about your responsibilities and the impact of being trusted by your colleagues to lead.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually. It's the most humbling experience that I've ever had in my life. The Speaker of the Council, well, the entire council, let's start there. We are a co-equal branch of government right alongside the mayor and his administration. In fact, we coexist at City Hall, the mayor and his administration on one side and the City Council on the other side. And it's a wonderful blend, shall we say. We are the check and the balance on the mayor and his administration for the people. We represent the people's voices within the city because we represent 51 districts across this city of duly elected officials who have constituents that put their trust in us to lead them and to be their voices in every corner of New York. So right now, we have representation that looks like the communities that we live in. The most amazing thing to me is to see the freshmen come in and the fact that we are actually representative. I look at them and I see the representation, finally, of all of the communities in New York City who look like them, who duly elected them to represent and be their voices. So we are the co-equal branch with the mayor, with governance. That means that we also have oversight. We have jurisdiction and partnership over the budget. We are in budget oversight hearings right now, holding the agencies accountable for their budget, for their work. Past and hopefully in the present and in the future. We are also, my job is also to lead and partner. I like to say partner with my colleagues in the City Council to help them do the best for their districts that they can possibly be and be the leaders that they were voted in to be.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, a look ahead, what can be done to ensure that women remain the majority and continue to elevate women of color to leadership? Because it's wonderful that it's happening now, of course, but we want the children who are in school today know that there is a path to where you are.
That's right. I love this question because it's taken a while to get here.
Yeah.
It's taken a while for people that, well predate me in government to have gotten where they have gotten. We take a look at the Mary Pinkett's, the first Black woman in the City Council some 50 years ago. We take a look at Shirley Chisholm, Congresswoman out of Brooklyn, and so many more. It took a lot. It takes a lot of stamina. Right now in the year 2021, 2022, we are still fighting, to be here. It's a lot harder for a woman to make our mark in government than it is for our male counterparts. We want to thank organizations like Emily's List, like Eleanor's Legacy, like Higher Heights, like 21 and 21, who really work to get 21 women in from 11 4 years ago when I got in, we wanted to see 21 get in. Well, guess what, Cheryl? We got 31. How about
Yes,
that?
you did.
We want to up them, and we got 31 because the
Right.
constituents of New York got it right, and they wanted that representation to be women, women-led. We lead differently, and we've got a holistic picture of what this leadership thing looks like.
That's beautifully said. So we don't have a lot of time left. We're going to stop at 7:20, but I want to get in some of your legislative priorities. And of course, we need to start with the recovery process from the pandemic. And it's worth noting, and condolences again, you lost your dad during this devastating time. So talk to us about the road ahead and what needs to be done to get all of us, especially women of color, back into the game, because women of color were hit hardest during this pandemic.
That's right. And thank you for remembering my dad.
Yeah, of course.
Tim, I haven't seen him now for 2 years.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Eyes on him. I lost my mom as well over the past year or so, and I miss them dearly, but thank you for remembering them. Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. Post-pandemic, we are now still fighting our way. This is year 3. It's so hard to believe this. This is year 3, being a part of a global pandemic that has affected a whole lot of us. Women of color in particular have been hurt very, very hard by this pandemic. So it's going to be up to us to issue that equity. That is the E word that many of us now are touting across because it's something that we believe in. We're the ones that see it, that live it, that see it in our communities, that breathe this thing within our communities. And we have to get to a place of equity in New York City. It's something that we've got a lot of work to do with. We know that the frontline workers happen to be women of color, those EMS workers, those teachers, the safety, the folks that cross our children, the crossing guards, and the list goes on, our nurses, the list goes on and on of women who lead, who are on the front line in numbers, but still continue to be at the very end of the pay scale. And we wear red today to represent Equal Pay Day. Which is something that we represent every year, but it's a shame that we had to stand at the steps of City Hall again to demand, as my colleague Althea Stevens said, just give us our money. It's not that to do. We earned it. Just give us our money. So we've got work to do in the world of equity for women, in the world of equity for women of color in particular. And I think that the time is right for us to do this. And I know that we've got the right women in leadership right now to do it.
Well, you are the right woman, and let's echo that. Just give us our money. We got to put that on a t-shirt. Madam Speaker, so appreciate your time for this She Leads event. We wish you the very best in your tenure as you move forward. Thank you very much for your time.
A pleasure, Cheryl, as always. Be well.
Okay, thank you. And everyone stay with us because we're going to continue this program. We're now pleased to welcome Councilmember Selvena Brooks Powers, who represents District 31 in Queens. And she's also the Majority Whip and Chair of the Transportation Committee, as well as Councilmember Rita Joseph from District 40 in Brooklyn. She's also the Chair of the Almighty Education Committee. Councilmember Natasha Williams of District 27 in Southeast Queens, and Councilmember Kamillah Hanks of District 49 out on Staten Island. And she is the chair of the very mighty Public Safety Committee, and that includes, of course, the NYPD. So Councilwoman Hanks, I want to start with you. Welcome one and all. New York City has its first, as you know, of course, you're there, the majority female council, first Black woman speaker. We just heard from her. I want to ask you the same question I started off with, Madam Speaker. What does this moment in time mean for you? Because I've been a journalist for more than 30 years. I remember the fight to get just a handful of women, regardless of color, on the speaker, on the council. And now here we are, the majority. I'm glad I lived to see this day. So what does it mean for you?
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with my mighty colleagues who are just so amazing. I'm actually humbled to actually be here with you, Cheryl Willis, and the Madam Speaker is just and incredible. This is the Black Renaissance of politics.
Yeah.
And it is even more so for women. So, I mean, I have my colleagues here from the other boroughs, but I come from the Forgotten District and the Forgotten Borough, where we're at least 40 years behind when it comes to women and especially women of color. I am succeeding the first Black female elected official, former council member Debbie Rose. And so what it means to me, it's a story for me. People know that my former council member Debbie Rose led for 12 years, but nobody talks about the 12 years she ran. And 24 years ago, I met her and I was a young mom. I had 4 babies and just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I met her and she said, "You have to vote for me." And I said, "Well, what's a city council member?" I didn't even understand as a mom that was possible. What, newly, this woman standing in front of me. And for me, 24 years later to succeed.
Yeah.
is a humbling, and it is a blessing that we don't understand when we are being mentors. We don't know when we're inspiring. So at every moment in time, there is a young woman out there that is going to precede you. And we have to be cognizant of that. So what it means to me, that her story means that we have to lift up, do not close the door, leave it open, and make sure that we're developing and mentoring the next up and coming incredible council. The city council doesn't even have a women's room in the chambers.
Wow.
It's outside of the chambers. And so that really makes you think that even when the council was created, they did not understand that women will be in that space. So that's what it means to me. I know it's something simple like bathrooms, but it's the first thing I noticed.
That's powerful. That's
the first piece of legislation we need to with the majority.
Let me ask your colleagues the same question. Council member Natasha Williams, share with us your thoughts on this historic moment in time for the city council.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely really exciting. I am also a first. So I took a seat that has had a very long and amazing history of amazing Black men, from Archie Spigner to now Senator Comrie and former Councilmember Danique Miller. It's really exciting to be here at this time. We know that women have a different sort of way of operating, way of leading, and I think that's needed right now. And so just to be amongst a group, and I think Councilmember Hanks said it best, humbled to be a part of this body of people perfectly describes how I feel about being a council member right now at this time.
At this time, that's well said. Council member Rita Joseph, I want to give you the opportunity to chime in on the historic nature of the city council.
Thank you so much. Good evening, colleagues. This moment means a lot for a child of immigrants. My grandparents brought me to America when I was 1.5 years from Haiti, and to stand on the shoulders of a woman who only knew how to sign her name is a dream and aspiration for all New Yorkers and young girls. And as an educator, this moment for me, working with these women, I mean, I'm so honored. Every time we see each other, we're just always all over each other, hugging each other as if it's the first time we're meeting. And I love that. And I love that I have the sisterhood, the tribe, the family, and I'm honored to serve with each and every one of them every single day. It's so exciting. We were at Councilmember Selvena's book on Sunday. We had no behavior. We're like, we the peanut gallery. That's how we act. And in this moment, we hope to be a representation of all New Yorkers. They see us, we are them and they are us. So this moment means a lot to me.
I love that. And you should celebrate each other. Councilmember Selvena Brooks Powers, talk to us about how you celebrate each other.
As my colleague, Councilmember Joseph said, we celebrate each other every chance we get, quite honestly, because we're just so in the moment right now, recognizing how historic it is to have 31 women out of 51 representing New York City, being able to look at government, look at legislation and how we fund projects across the city from a new lens. It's a refreshing feeling. And the energy that has come into this council is just really electrifying. And it's such a blessing. And I say this often, to be able to serve with them. I had what I call a baby term last year because I won in a special election. And so when I came in, I had the opportunity to kind of soak up some of the knowledge of the council members that were leaving. And then in January, we had about 2/3 turnover in the council. And it was great to have the opportunity to work with my colleagues in the last term, but it's just a different level of energy, I have to say, with this new class that has come in.
Amazing. And let me pose this question to you. According to Higher Heights, while we're celebrating the historic nature of the first female majority in the city council, Higher Heights of America, or Higher Heights for America, reports that Black women make up 3.7% of all elected officials across the nation. And the number for Latina women is even lower. So talk to us about the set of experiences that made you answer the call to run for office.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the stats, because it is definitely a testimony in terms of the work that's still left ahead of us. You know, this is a great stride in terms of the city council. And we, a few of us attended a breakfast recently with 21 and 21 with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. And we even talked about her organization off the sidelines, and how do we take this same energy and success and bring it national so that we can increase representation in other levels of government, because it's absolutely needed. And so it's my hope that working with those type of organizations, we'll see even more women come into public office. And for me, the call started, I knew I wanted to be in public service. I knew I wanted to help. My grandfather was very active in politics in Jamaica, West Indies. And so I've always had a passion for helping people and being with people. But when I decided that I would get off the sidelines and actually run, I was in California doing a national campaign, and I attended an event that was being hosted by an organization called Emerge. And I remember sitting there and them, like you just did with the stats, start talking about the statistics. And they were like, you know, it takes an average of 7 times to ask a woman to run before she even seriously considers running. And I'm sitting there thinking about all the years at that point, even that I had been working in government, working in a male dominated space in leadership in the state Senate, where all 3 men in the room at the time were men. And I had to sit back and ask myself, why not me? You know, I've been active, I've been in the community, I've been doing the work, why not? And so I decided to run, and I didn't win that time. I stayed active again, and about 8 years later, ran again, and this was just my time.
Oh, wow.
Amen.
That's it. This is your time. And we salute you for it. Council member Rita Joseph, you're the chair of the Education Committee. And as we all know, David Banks is the new chancellor. And of course, with the mayor, they really want to turn over the tables, as Banks told me. So what's your priority for children of color in the city's largest public school district?
I have a lot of priorities. The list is long. I'm a fighter for smaller classroom size. That's been a fight for a very long time. And the statistics shows that the smaller the classroom, the better the outcome. Classroom has been ballooned up to 32 students, one teacher. So that's not enough for me. Better schoolwork, social workers, nurses, guidance counselors versus student ratios. We've been through a pandemic. Our students need outlets to talk about their feelings. We need to walk them through this. Also advocate on students that are in foster care, housing, students with special needs, ENL students, which are English as a new language. So the plate is big, but with my colleagues in government, I know that I will have the support that I need as a mom to lead with compassion and empathy to make sure that 1.1 million children that looks like you and I are not left behind.
And that's great to hear. And now, Council Member Natasha Williams, I want to talk to you about something a lot of people say, that women govern differently than men. Do you believe that to be true? And if so, how?
That's a good question. And sidebar, as Councilmember Joseph said, when she was talking, I was like, yes, work, Rita, yes. I just had to add that, but I was muted. I think we lead differently because we lead with our hearts for the most part. Not that men don't, but I think when you think about, I've been having a lot of conversations about feminine energy and masculine energy. We all have both. But as women, we tend to have, sometimes, not all women, some women have, a lot of feminine energy, which is the compassion, which is leading with your heart, which is really being mindful of how you are impacting people at a greater scale. One of the things to your question that I was thinking about is just sort of the nature of how we, as Black women, I'm also in a PhD program looking at Black women in social movements. And one of the things that I've been able to sort of learn in my research is that Black women always have to bring everybody's issues with them, right? So as mothers, we have to bring our children's issues with us, right? As wives, we have to bring our husband's issues with us. As caretakers, not just of our families, but our communities, we have to bring our whole community on our back. In some ways, I don't think that's always fair because we have to always align our liberation and our freedom to that of other people, even if it's white women as Black women, right? We as a woman, when we are advocating for ourselves, we're also putting white women on our backs. And so I think just the nature of Black women, if we want to talk about Black women specifically, we lead differently because we have a different lens because of our own positionality in society. There is the saying, if Black women are good, we all are good, right? And so I think we understand that because of who we are.
Girl, you set a fire with that one because, when we think of our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers, they indeed, just like you said, had the whole world on their shoulders. Even if they were stooped over, cleaning out toilets or other jobs that they were relegated to do when they were really brilliant, but society pushed them into this hole, like my grandmothers, they really had the weight of the world on their shoulders. So do you feel that same weight as someone who is going for her PhD in the city council and everything, all the things you're juggling?
I do. It's funny. I actually asked my big sis, Majority Whip, Selvena Brooks Powers, this question. I was like, is it worth it now that you've been there after I won? And, she was a little taken aback by the question, but because she was like, that is a really good question. But one of the things she said, which aligns to what I'm going to say, is heavy is the head that wears the crown. So she's like, it's worth it, but it's a lot. And so, yes, I do feel heavy. But I think it's important that we're in these spaces, that we do what we always do. We push through, we push forward for the betterment of our people, for the betterment of ourselves, and ultimately this nation, right? Because it all bubbles up and it all spreads out into the world.
Well said. Now, Council Member Hanks, I want to circle back to you. You're the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and that includes the NYPD, and you represent Staten Island. I don't need to say anything more. So talk to us about your legislative priorities as it relates to this very important committee of public safety.
Well, I have to also acknowledge what my sisters have said here tonight, because it all incorporates into the public safety arena. What Nantasha, Councilmember Natasha Williams was saying is that we've always been here, but now we get paid for it. We have the title, that part. But we have always been in this space. So when I look at it, as I ran for office, I started out in economic development. I was a business person. I don't come from, they had to drag me kicking and screaming to run for office, but public safety is my passion. And for me, being in public safety is looking at myself as a mother. People say, like, where do you come from with public safety? My son turned 21 today. I want my child to go outside and do what he'd like to do, and I want him to come home. It's real simple. We all, and that's what also the council members have been talking about. We know, because we've all dealt with burying people from gun violence. We understand what domestic violence is. We understand what disparities and equities are on a personal level or on a level that is right there. So public safety imports all of those things. It's education, it's transportation, it's infrastructure, it's civil rights. So as the public safety chair, my priority is to meet somewhere in the middle. We have to be have more preventative and intervention, take care of our education at a young age, make sure people have places to live. In Staten Island, there was a housing project that hadn't had cooking gas for 9 months. So what do you think comes out of that?
That's right.
Public safety is human rights. If we don't look at how people are living, how people are educated, how people are treated, then, and also learning disabilities, public safety imports all of those things. So my priorities has always been community policing, leaning in, understanding that there is a place between lock them up and let them out. This is not where we are. We want to be in a community where we're not incarcerating people, but we are developing people. We are adhering to the real issues that cause violence in our communities, because these are our issues. And so when I say as a mother, these things affect me, and we need to understand how that looks like it's all of our young people. If my son is safe, your son is safe. And that's how we have to look at things. So I'm very humbled of being the chair of public safety. It's a lot to unpack. I think it's incredible that we have a Black police commissioner who is a woman, which her lens is very unique.
Yeah. Have you met her yet?
I have met her, and she's incredible, because this is a sisterhood. We understand these are our sons, these are our brothers, these are our uncles, these are our fathers who have these interactions. So it means something more to us. So our lens, as Natasha saying, is of love and compassion, because we've all been there. And so if we save one person, we can save them all. And I think that is the beauty of this women body, and especially women of color who have been doing this work for hundreds of years. Yeah. And now we are taking our place, and now we are being recognized for this work. And it's been too long, but at least we're here.
At least we're here. Beautifully said. I want to invite everyone who's watching. I invite you to give comments in the chat. If you have questions for any of the council members at 7:55, I'll start to read some of your questions. But I want to circle back to Council Member Selvena Brooks Powers. And this is a question I am going to ask for all of you before we get to the Q&A. Give us a strategy for women, especially those gathered with us today, to get engaged in improving their blocks, their neighborhoods, their communities, both collectively and individually. The reason I ask that is because, as we all know, it feels like we're losing control of our city. It seems like the crime, which is constantly escalating, it's hard to get a grasp of, what it used to be pre-pandemic. So I'm asking all of you for some strategies. Let's start with you, Council Member Selvena Brooks Powers.
Sure, thank you for that question. I will say, I remember during the protests around George Floyd, a lot of people felt conflicted in terms of what can my role be? Should I be on the forefront on protests? You know, do I do the tweeting? You know, and just like in that moment, there's a lane for everybody. And there's a way that everyone can contribute to making their community better, whether it's by attending your community board meeting or joining or forming a block association meeting. You may want to join a local organization that's active. I myself am a member of Queens Alumni Chapter for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And, you know, in our organization is super active, but there are a lot of different organizations, the NAACP, that you can just get involved, join a committee, be active, and play your part there. And also volunteer on campaigns. And I say that because I remember when I went to the Bay Area to work on a campaign, I learned that city so quickly. I learned and met people so quickly because campaigning allows you to connect with people in a different way. It allows you to learn the issues really quickly in terms of the day-to-day challenges people face. And so that's why I actually have a love for campaigning. And so I think that's another way people can get involved.
That's great advice. The same question for you, Councilmember Joseph. Give us a strategy where women can get empowered and get involved.
As an educator, I always tell my parents, join the PTA. That's at the local level in your school. You have your voice. Join the school leadership team where you get to vote on decisions, budgets, school policies. So that's another way. Join your community board, like Councilmember Powers. Join your community board. When you wake up in the morning, you see a bike lane, it didn't just happen. Your community board actually voted on it, and you weren't part of that decision-making process. So join it, don't be afraid. And it's at the local level. And local politics is very important. We tend to go national, as local as possible. Your trash cans, your quality of life, all of that is answered at the local level. So that's my advice. If you don't want to get too far, run for office, join the PTA, join the SLT.
Great advice. Councilmember Williams, your advice for women to get involved.
I agree with everything that was said before me. With the addition of something else I tell people is, what are you passionate about? So if you like dogs, there is an organization that is doing stuff around supporting dogs, because I feel people tend to stick with things they're passionate about. So I love the PTA, because if you're a parent, you got to be passionate about your kid. But if there are other issue areas that you care about, I always encourage folks to do some research, see what type of organizations are doing work in that area, because you'll stay committed to something that you're passionate about. Also, all politics is all the way local. I was also on the community board, so I encourage people to join the community board. I also turn the mirror back on us now that I am an elected official, to be proactive about the ways in which we seek to engage the community. That's my own deliberative democracy mindset. So the council has had participatory budgeting, right, in the past. I know it's hard for members, but that is one way to get the community engaged. Sometimes government itself has to create the space for involvement that's accessible and that is equitable across the board for folks to really be involved.
That's a great question. And what do you have to say to people who say, well, I feel like I don't have a voice, or I don't know where to turn? What's that specific direction women need who feel, I don't even know where to go?
Reach out to me. I mean, I'll drop my office number in the chat. You know, it starts with reaching out to your local electeds. I always tell people that as well. Like, you can literally go online, Google who your folks are, meeting with them. And so when you meet with your local elected, or even meet with their offices, you can ask them, like, how can I be engaged? How can I be involved? And that's a resource as well. But definitely figuring out, one, what you're most interested in, and then doing a little bit of research to find out how to tap into that. But this is why, again, I'll turn the lens back on us. us to be more proactive and making sure this information is readily available, because there's always that small group of people. We know the same people that's on the community board, it's the same people that's a part of the civic association, it's the same people that call you, but our districts are like over 100,000+ people, and we are not interacting with that many people on a daily basis. So it's also up to us to create the space and be grassroots and hands-on about making sure that people do have the information so that they don't have to go searching too hard to find it.
That's great advice. And Council Member Hanks, I want you to chime in on that as well.
So I definitely echo what my sisters have said here tonight, but I'm a civic person. So I was a president of the Van Duzer Street Civic Association. And one of the things that I've realized is that many people of color don't do the boring, mundane things about the civics. It's about traffic and potholes and public safety. That's where those conversations are having. So when Councilmember Williams says, you know, we hear from the same 25 people, people have to understand that most districts are run by about 30 people who don't be like, they're there every time, every place. And so we are representatives. And so if you are part of a civic association, you tend to understand like the bread and butter issues that really plague your neighborhood. And, you know, it gave me a perspective as a mom, you know, who went to work, came home, cooked dinner, and then you realize, wow, why is that trash out there all the time in this neighborhood? Why are these things happening in the neighborhood? And what are the processes of getting that cleared up? I mean, for me, that's, you know, the bread and butter of being an elected. It's kind of unsexy stuff. I mean, you want to be a leadership, you want to go through policy, you want to do legislation, but at the end of the day, people are calling you saying the guy hasn't picked up my trash in 2 days, and or a pothole issue. And so, you know, being involved in your civic association, we've started our civic roundtable where we're encouraging and doing capacity building. I'm always going to be talking about capacity building because many communities of color do not have or understand the importance of coming together and saying, it doesn't have to be this way. And when you say it doesn't have to be this way, then you're taking ownership of your neighborhood and you're saying, I can make it better. And that's why this other neighborhood looks great and it's tree-lined blocks. No, it's the people who say, we're not having that, we're not doing that, and we need this fixed, and we're calling you and you're holding you to task. And so we don't want 30 people to be the people in our ear for a district. We want 300, you know, we want 30,000 people. I mean, we don't, but, you know, but that's what, but we do want to make sure. And the PTAs are those are unsung heroes, you know, when you are a part of your child's education, I mean, all of the issues are played out in a PTA meeting, all of it. And so these are the spaces that we can be in that we wouldn't ordinarily be in. So we're doing a big campaign to tell people of color in our neighborhoods, come to the civic meeting, just sit down and listen, you know, and it's very enlightening. And that is how we get more of us involved.
Absolutely. So now the questions are starting to come into the chat, and this might be perfect for you, Council Member Hanks, since you're the chair of the Public Safety Committee. Someone asks, how do we keep our males safe from police brutality? You want to address that? Well,
you know, Staten Island's 49th district, you know, we had the tragic events of Eric Gardner being killed in, you know, on camera. I mean, this is a big issue that even as the mayor has released his blueprint and we're talking about, you know, neighborhood safety teams, most people, especially women of color, are looking at this saying, and again, I'm talking about their sons, their brothers, their uncles, they're looking at this saying, how are our civil rights being protected? How can we have the balance of public safety and also have the balance of protecting people's civil rights? And I think that that's what this committee, that's what we're about. So how can we keep them safe? We have to get involved. We have to, I was just on a Zoom with Inspector Kinsella for the 120 precinct, and in her the precinct, they have, how are we doing? And with a link where people can say, I had an interaction with a police officer? How was your interaction? And that really guides and helps the precinct make sure that they're protecting people's civil liberties while trying to keep people safe. But, you know, this is a balance that we have to, as a body, make sure that we're making the right decisions on keeping people safe from bad actors and keeping people safe from police community interactions. We have a history that needs to be acknowledged. I mean, and that acknowledgement has to be addressed.
Okay, to any of our other members, someone here says yes to participatory budgeting. And I want one of you to explain for everyone gathered, what is participatory budgeting and why does it matter?
I'll answer that. Participatory budget, to me, I call it the people's democracy. It allows a council member to put a pot of money together and the community comes up with these great ideas. They are your ears and eyes, so they know what the community is lacking. So they would come up with ideas, we put it in a pot and then it gets voted on. And it's $1 million. So the community gets to vote on it, they get to pick the projects, and then you have delegates. That's one way to get the community involved in democracy, deciding on where your tax dollars are being spent in the district, in the community, to better the community as well. So that's why this year I did participatory budgeting. We're still in the process, picking out delegates and volunteers, submitting the different projects, whether it's bedding, park ideas, flower beds, water fountains, trash cans, and whatever it is to better the community, we allow the district, the community members to decide on the projects. So participatory budget to me is the people's democracy.
Okay. And a question from me as a journalist. Right now, we have a major homelessness crisis. Police just arrested a man that was going around literally shooting and in some cases killing homeless people. What, in your view, needs to be done to really get a handle on the city's homelessness crisis, and especially as it relates to the mental health crisis? Anyone can take it. This is what happens when a journalist asks a question.
I guess I'll go for the question. I know that New York has for many years had what we call a housing crisis.
Right.
And for far too long, I think we have looked for Band-Aids to address the situation. In fact, in the last administration, we saw a lot of hotels pop up in communities where no tourists are visiting, but it was with the intention of having homeless people live in those hotels, as opposed to really looking at it and investing in a real way and creating permanent housing for those who are without housing, as well as investing in mental health. I will say the last administration, one of the highlights will be the shift in how people talk about mental health. And, you know, we have demystified that conversation, where you even see now in the Black community, a lot more people talking about mental health. And so, you know, we have to now begin to invest in a real way in terms of as my soror Rose Pierre-Louis used to say, wraparound services to help New Yorkers. And so that is not just dumping New Yorkers in these hotels. We are needing to invest in making sure that their mental state is good, making sure we're dealing with the food insecurity, making sure we're helping them get skilled and find gainful employment, and getting them on the track that way. And so it's a lot of work to be done. It is a major undertaking, and I think we have to start to look at it from a more holistic perspective and move away from these Band-Aid opportunities, or we'll continue to be in the same space. We've seen this problem just continue to grow. And under Bloomberg, it was there, and then it, you know, the numbers just, I think it was, I don't want to say go as far as saying doubled, but I know it grew significantly under de Blasio's administration. So.
Okay, and another question for anyone to take. What do you make of Mayor Adams' job so far?
I'll take that one.
Oh, I thought I wasn't sure if you were asking me.
No,
Or,
it's-
okay,
Sorry,
go
for
ahead. Go ahead.
anyone. Yeah, for anyone. For anyone.
Well, shout out to the brother who is the, mayor of New York City. That's first and foremost. I think it's a huge task. I mean, and I think that the mayor has been bringing up issues that are are really important. I mean, in the first few days of being elected, we've had tragedies with 2 police officers being killed. We've had, a lot of a spike in gun violence and a spike in violence, period. And coming up with a blueprint is something that we've not had before. I mean, our job as a body is to unpack that and make sure that what it's on paper is going to work on the ground. But I think that, a lot of we released the economic development. And so a lot of these pieces are, with these blueprints, are a very good start. So I applaud the mayor for putting forth these pieces. And, we have to be a check on the mayor, but we also have to work with the mayor because we all want these problems to be solved. Some of us have very different approaches. So I think that this is an opportunity to see how this is going to happen. I mean, we have a female majority and we have men, African Americans in spaces that we haven't had it before. So if it's not now, when is it going to be? So we all have a nickel in the dime of making sure that we support and make sure that he does a good job and support him and, make sure that he's doing the right thing. But I'm happy so far to be a part of this.
Absolutely. All of you are parts of history. So
Yeah.
Council members, Selvena Brooks Powers of Queens, Rita Joseph of Brooklyn, Natasha Williams of Queens, and Kamillah Harris of Staten Island.
Thanks.
I just want to say I appreciate all of your service, and I know everyone who's on. We're so proud of you and your leadership, and you are dynamic women, and you are all trailblazers in your own way. So thank you for your time. It means so much that you joined us for this She Leads event. And now I'm going to thank everyone. I have to prepare for my 10 o'clock show live. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Donna Jones for closing remarks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much to Cheryl Wills for moderating this amazing webinar this evening. So I'm just overwhelmed with this panel of yes, but I do want to share that on behalf of the Greater New York chapter of the Links Incorporated, I wish to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished panel, including our Madam Speaker, Adrienne Adams, our distinguished members of the panel, our amazing Emmy Award-winning host for this evening's panel discussion, Cheryl Wills, and I will clearly state for the record, she is also our sister link from the Greater Queens house. We are Greater New York, but our sister link is from Greater Queens, and I know they are in the house and so very proud of her as well. Thank you all for taking the time to join us and taking time out of your very busy schedules to participate in our She Leads program for this evening and to celebrate Women's History Month. The discussions were both inspiring and informative. It was so wonderful to hear who you were, how you came to be, and what you are passionate about. I always believe that passion and purpose make for a great collection of what inspires us as women of color. I thank you for representing us so well in these very challenging times. We know to lead in these times is not easy at all, but you're doing it and you're doing it well. And we salute you and celebrate you during this time. we know that you all have your personal lives as well, and you're balancing and blending it and showing us and inspiring us and encouraging us how we can do the same. I'd like to also thank our co-sponsors this evening, the New York Urban League, New York Urban League under the dynamic leadership of my sister link, Arva Rice. I'd like to thank NYU McSilver Institute and certainly their Chief Operating Officer, our sister link, Rose Pierre Louis, and also our sister link, Naila Flake Brown, who helped facilitate this along with Rosemont Pierre Louis for all of their incredible efforts. This has been an amazing program. I salute you, all of our council members, for your incredible work. And I thank all of our participants this evening, both on the panel and those that have been in the audience. God bless you all, and thank you for joining us. And happy Women's History Month. I'd like to close with saying something that Shirley Chisholm said many years ago. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your folding chair, and you all are bringing your folding chair and changing the dynamics of the City Council. Thank you so much. God bless, and have a great night, everyone.